Yeah, happy to have you here. Communities and community building are huge topics for our day and age, and it's going to be even more important in 2025. Push comes to shove. We could spend hours on marketing presentations, reading reports by trend watchers, but I guess we all understand that the key takeaway is that communities build trust. That leads to higher engagement, higher sales, and that's why everybody wants it. Let's talk about how you guys at Race Club got to the trust and engagement part of the level. So, without further ado, let's jump into the convo. Um, Before we get into real stuff, can you tell our viewers a fact about yourself that maybe few people know, or about the club?
My favorite conversation, question as well. Especially when I used to like work in corporate, the icebreaker was like the most terrifying questions to be asked. I don't know, fun fact, but I guess special fact is before like any race that I do or any big event that I have in my life, whether it's race or any type of activity, I kind of like choose a song 1 week before it happens and I set it as my theme for that week. Kind of like, a TV show, and I just let that song motivate me and just, play it along. And then I never listened to it for like 1 year.
Very poetic. As in your life as a TV
Well,
show?
it's usually quite, like Britney Spears toxic. It can be, very diverse,
Yeah.
but yeah, we all need some type of motivation, I guess.
Okay, then let's get into the community stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know if Britney Spears has a song about that, but what are the top three beginner tips for creators and community leaders who are just starting out?
Yeah. I think first of all, don't overthink it, looking back, I think so many times in the past I've asked myself the question, should I start posting? Should I start, engaging, creating a community? And just like, this whole like thought process stopped me from doing it. Because the more time you take to think about things, the more reasons you'll find not to do them. So I guess, just don't overthink it, jump in it and see what happens. Um, I guess second would be consistency. I think there's a lot of adrenaline when you start a project, and you're very driven for the first 5 days, maybe a week, 2 weeks. You're posting, you're super happy and really driven by the prospect of success or your passion. And then there will be days, literally in the first month, when you start doing something when results will not show up. It could be a day, it could be, a week or something. And I guess like that's the thin spot in any creator's journey where you start questioning yourself very early on because you're saying, okay, I shouldn't have done this. I knew it. It's not going to work out. But that's the moment when you actually start to post, and the things which will accelerate your journey will happen in those moments where you question yourself the most. So I guess consistency and not doubting yourself. And third one, just be cringe and be yourself. I feel like the more unique are, or the more unique content you post, the more cringe is gonna be looked at it first, and people will be like, okay, because that's the reality in our society nowadays. It is different, it's weird, or it's like, oh, why did they do that? But it's cringe until it becomes successful, and then it becomes a trend, and from that point onwards, people start following you. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So would you say community being a community leader is about um, a set of rules, or do you think it's about some magical rizz, confidence, a mix of things? Is it either you have it or you don't type of thing?
I do think there's certain strategic elements to being a community leader in a way that even with race, like all the time, we're trying to make sure that when runners attend our events, they are looked after, from a security perspective, from a experience perspective, from um, any kind of like aspect that influences their experience with race. So I do feel you need to have that kind of strategy and vision, and with whatever brand you work with, you have to make sure that the community is taken care of. But I guess from, I wouldn't say it's rizz necessarily. I think like there's a lot of community leaders nowadays, and a lot of very successful communities and run clubs and, sport movements. Um, and the charm of it is that all of them reflect the identity of the people running it. Um,
Mm.
and it doesn't mean that everyone likes race or everyone will join it, but the people who actually find your values as similar to theirs will be, like your strong community members and the ones kind of like sharing the brand, engaging with it. So it's just as long as you're true to yourself, people who actually value what you're doing will join the journey.
They and they can value your interests or your values to a smaller to a larger extent. Either way, they are showing some love, so that's important.
Exactly.
Um, you started mentioning security of your or safety of your runners during the events.
Mhm.
Can you walk us through a bit how did you produce your maybe first event? What steps does it take to arrange an event like run event?
Well, the first event that I ever organized with Phrase, now we get like hundreds of people attending, 300, 400 people. The first one we did was like 11 just random folks who joined. I think I remember like I posted it on like all the Facebook weird communities and channels, people who like kebabs in Barcelona, people who I don't know, I just like scrolled for like all the groups possible. We got 11 folks, guess they came because it looked funny or like interesting enough, and from that point onward it just started growing, and we're at this point. From an event management perspective, the thing we phrase like every week we do an event in a different location, meaning that we collaborate with a different brand, which has a different setting, a different experience, a different vibe. So for us, a lot of the things that go into the planning is trying to reflect the identity of that brand that we work with through our socials. First of all, trying to explain to them as much as possible how what a running community is and what a running event does, and helps the people. And then again, there's certain factors like making sure runners have water available, there's a backdrop of point, the route is friendly enough for runners but also friendly enough for the citizens of or tourists of the city, because you don't want to overcrowd the streets too much. um Making sure like runners are aware that they have to queue and be respectful of the place, and all those parts. But I guess after a couple of events, everything becomes quite seamless, because runners are one of the nicest communities ever, very organized, very strategic by themselves. So it just falls into place very organically.
I see. To me, a takeaway here is also not to be afraid to start small when producing business. From what you said, it's easy to aim for a big event, get discouraged, cancel it, or like not go through with your even like a first happening, a first meetup. So it's cool that you decided that starting with 11 people works well enough, and that
Yeah.
it does. Because
And it's also like the first, I feel like it's important to like make a summary of all the events that you're doing, especially at the beginning, because the first time I had 11 people, I was like, okay, that's amazing. Maybe for other folks like 11 was not that much, but for me it was 11 people took time out of their daily lives and joined the event. And then for the next events, even like if we had like one person extra, that means just
growth.
so much, for the growth. Exactly. So one person can make a huge difference. When you get to like big numbers, you kind of like start losing track, and whether it's 50 more or 50 less doesn't make such a big of a difference. But at the beginning, when you have those two, three, five, even one person, that's really valuable, and that's a thing that I always look back into, and I'm very grateful for that part of the journey.
With the growth to the hundreds that you mentioned, what were your strategies in getting there, in getting people involved into your account, into your group chat, into the physical events themselves?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think I have to highlight, and it's very important. Like I have a great team. That they kind of like started as runners, and then they became the community leaders and captains of race. And I think they, I mean, I don't think, I mean, that's certain. It's they've played a crucial part in the development of race, because each one of them is so, different and unique, and their journey of running started from such a different point that people just like look at them, and it's like, if you don't like the vibe of someone, you just switch. We got so much, spiciness in the group that it just makes it very, very easy for people to relate to our leaders. In terms of growth and how it got to this point, I think, like, socials play a big part. Like Instagram, I think it's the main driver. um Again, I do think like you have to stay very true to your vision. There's a lot of, brands or communities that I've seen who they start just by copying the aesthetics of, already established businesses, and it can work to a certain extent, but people do catch on to that quite early on in the journey. So I guess runners, or just like, participants to any event, they're always looking for that extra spicy special, thing that is going to drive them to the event, whether it's like a weird quirky photo, whether, it's like an offer for them, something, that gives them back a bit more than they got from other events or communities.
Where does the because your positioning, your tagline is spicy runners.
Yeah.
Where does the spicy runners position come from?
I mean, I love spicy food, don't get me wrong, and I guess that was a big starting point for it. But the spicy relates a lot to how flavored our events are, like the craziness and the madness of the running and of the runners and the people who are taking part in those, events. Spicy is usually, is just like a very intense experience. Um, but we translate that into a nice, intense experience for people actually, like they get a lot of value from the social part of it, from the running part of it, and it's just flavored. My favorite restaurant when I used to live back in London was Nando's, and they serve chicken, like peri peri chicken with different flavors, and you go from like lime herb to all the way to like super spicy. And that's what I always thought race was compared to, like other run clubs. They're just like, man, that's the spiciest, community that we can put our hand to. So yeah, um, being crazy, being mad, being intense, call it as you want, but it's just, it's a certain flavor that you get when you come to race and after you leave the event as well.
Um, there's a lot of talk in the media about how run clubs are like an alternative to dating apps, a big
Yes.
thing to meet new dates. Is that this some of the spice implied?
I think I mean, it's a general reality now. I feel like a lot of communities are not acknowledging it or are trying to play down, this whole betting card. But it's one of the main drivers, I'm not the most successful, person like dating wise, which is funny because I have a big run club, but people come there. It's an organic way to meet and vet also, like other folks that you're meeting there. They have something in common with you. If you want to go superficial, you'll look at their outfits. If they vibe with your outfit and aesthetic, vision, then perfect. But it's a healthy way. I think like that's a super important thing in this like run club trend. You don't have to meet people for drinks nowadays, just to create a connection, or you don't have to go out at night. You can go during the morning. It's a more safe space, I would say. And it just, it fosters more conversation and more organic chat. There's less catfishing for sure at the run clubs than it is on dating apps.
Okay. Um, while we were preparing for this event, our team has voted you as a cutie. Do you think your looks or your looks of your colleagues that are doing organizing have played into the popularity of the club?
Um, I don't know, to be honest. I think I actually we have like this inside joke in race with our team. We say like, whenever you call someone cute, is that usually it's that, guy or girl that you like, but just like your friend zone, the shit out of it. So it could be translated to that, but I don't think it's rizz, I think it's just like my passion for running and the passion of my team and their craziness. um and I guess passion can translate or transform to rizz. I feel like when people are driven by a certain objective or goal, or they've got their heart poured into that project, I feel that is something that people feel attracted to, and they want more of that energy, because ultimately it also influences their creator journey. There's so many people who came to rizz, and after they started their own run clubs or their own projects, and that was such a nice thing to see, that um, we actually help people to show that you don't need that much to start a successful project, and you can just do it. Just jump into it.
Okay, that's very inspiring and unrehearsed, I can tell. You talked about organizing, about reaching out to people on social media. You guys at Raise, on top of Instagram, also use WhatsApp. Why specifically that?
Well, we wanted to cater also for the people who don't have Instagram. I'm sure that's not a big part, but it is there. And I guess Instagram, is the place where you escape, but WhatsApp is also the place where, like, you have your professional chats, or there's more like serious conversation. And I feel like having a message from your run club on Monday morning, just telling you about these cool events that are happening, it's a nice way for you to like escape a bit that stressed on WhatsApp. Um, but again, Instagram is the main, channel that we use. We have Strava, which is huge for runners and, like, the sports community, that we activate a lot. And WhatsApp is just the alternative, for people who can't or don't have Instagram, or they take a break from socials and they just want to, stay in touch with us.
I see. Looks like the sunset on your setup.
Yeah.
Right there?
I don't know. It's why there's actually like a funny reel that is going nowadays online. You start running at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
4 p.m. Sorry, it's daylight, and 4:01 it's already like dark. You can't see anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Um, engagement is crucial, obviously, in community building. How do you keep your members motivated and excited to keep liking, keep sharing, to participate in events? Is there specific things you remind them about to do? What's beyond the passion that we've just talked about?
Yeah. No,
Technically.
Well, the reels play a big part, especially at the beginning of any project. I feel like reels are a great way for you to like say a story of a certain event, or kind of engage with an audience in a very short time, but very like powerful. And I feel like back in the day, a lot of like brands, a lot of like running clubs, they were just, and even now, they're very focused like on the aesthetic and being super serious, super performance oriented. But very often I feel like the most engagement you get from reels and content that just like reflects the pain, the weirdness, those awkward moments of motivation that you find yourself in when you're walking drunk back home from the club, and you're like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be running. It's all those very relatable experiences translated to your community that actually make a difference. So I feel like reels is a great way for that. And yeah, just going crazy with the content, like, of course, there's certain levels of curation that a good brand has to have on their channels, on their social media. But like, don't get boring, don't just play it safe for the sake of, oh, it looks good aesthetically and we want to just look clean. Yeah, just be playful,
Don't be afraid to be messy.
exactly. Spicy, messy, it's even funny, like, some of the most successful reels that I've seen are the ones which take the less level of preparation for them. It's just like those spontaneous moments where you like pick up the camera, you point it at yourself or someone else, and you just shoot it. When you start scripting the events, and you make it like staged, it just doesn't work. And yeah, the algorithm doesn't play in your favor either.
I'm going to take a short break from asking questions to remind everyone that we're excited to share a special guide featuring the best Reels templates to level up running or authority content. Be sure to check out our highlight on the Prequel account and take your content to the next level and stuff. Switching on to the topic of partnerships and collaborations, you have partnered with brands like Nike and Danone. Can you tell how those collaborations came to be?
For sure. And I guess before like touching on how they actually came to be, it's very funny, and I feel like it's a funny story. Is that I applied to work for Nike. I feel like 20 times back when I was, younger, and every time when I got rejected, they're like, the vibe doesn't fit, like our vision. Maybe try next time. All those things. And in the end, it just worked out. And I guess what I wanted to say by that is that don't try to be what you think a brand wants you to be. Just be yourself, and if that version of you, if your OG version of yourself aligns with their vision, that's the most healthy partnership possible. And sometimes it might not be the right moment, but when the moment does happen, it's gonna be a very easy conversation to be had. And with Nike and Danone, yes, we grew a lot, and we made Barcelona a very sexy and spicy city to run in. Because I love Barcelona, and that's why Ray started here, just because of the love of the city and what it has to offer, the sea and the mountains. Um, and I guess brands just like started to acknowledge, the power of run clubs in communities. Looking back, before the pandemic, I don't think there was any kind of engagement between like run clubs and brands to this extent. But now I feel like, the shift has focused in the marketing departments to, instead of having like, own projects by the brand, it's like, how do we support those local movements and just, like foster, as much support as possible to their journey.
Or how do we hop on successful community projects
Oh,
and steal some of that spotlight?
it could be. I mean, for sure, it's a great advertising way for them and to stay relevant. But that's the best combination, though. When brands support the vision of the communities, and that's why I'm saying, like, even when you start working with big brands, like, don't ever change the vision of that project just for the sake of even more awareness or more successful collaborations. Stick to it. Don't let it a brand define your brand, but work closely with them, because there's immense amount of like expertise and things that you can learn from them. But that's why they sign with you in the first place, because they liked that story that you wrote yourself. So don't change the narrative too much.
Kids, you heard it. Write that email, send that pitch deck, pitch presentation, and just hope for the better.
Do you know what? Actually, I would say that reaching out to brands is one of not the best strategy to go around with. I feel like the moment you reach out, you lose a lot of your negotiation power. In any conversation with brands, there's people in a lot of departments in marketing and social media where their job is to keep track of what's happening online. And those people are actually the ones who are hunting down, like all these communities, and are trying to log them down in conversations and collabs. So I would say just focus on your brand,
Your own
because they will
thing.
reach out to you. Exactly. They are
That's
waiting for you to reach out to them, because you don't have no idea what they can provide. So you're just gonna get yourself with a worse deal that you could get, if they reach out to you.
Are you a Leo? That sounds like a Leo thing to
I'm a
say.
Capricorn, actually.
Or maybe also that, yeah.
Yeah.
For other creators or community leaders aiming to secure brand partnerships, share how have these collaborations have impacted the club, the growth, the visibility. Has there been tangible changes to how you're seen?
Don't get me wrong, like, I'm a sucker for freebies, man. And even like, before I started Race, I think I was going to so many like running events and clubs. And you're always kind of like low-key waiting for something, even if it's, I don't know, like a free keychain or something. It just like changes the experience so much, right? Even if it's a sticker. And that was one of the things that I always had in my mind with Phrase. Like, I want to give back to the running community as much as possible. And that's why, like, we never charge runners, for our events. We never ask for money from our community. And I feel like that's where, like, the big brands come into play, because they can help you provide the best experience and those nice, touches, product wise to your community. Of course, they've got the big budgets, and they can make it easier for you to activate your plans and your projects. 100%, 100%. And it's uh, unfortunately, Spain is one of the countries with like the less marketing budget in Europe. And we are trying to raise awareness of like the huge potential that there is here. But like in the US, in the UK, in France, in Germany, like that, the potential there is like incredible. Um, but yeah, to going back to the previous comment, they help make better the experience for the people who attend your events, and it's easier for you to focus on your creativity when you have the support uh, provided by these brands.
When you also don't have to fight for the attention that much.
Exactly.
When you already get them hooked on
I mean,
Nike freebies.
the financial parties, you can't deny it, and very often, you have to sacrifice from different, parts of the events or experiences just because you can't cover all the costs. So, having that kind of like support as well, um, it's something that really, really drives even more growth. But I would have to say, and I've had conversations with other brands, like when you lock down a deal, make sure that they won't make you change too much about yourself, because I had conversations and we were very close to like signing deals, and they were like, okay, but we want to control the narrative on the social media with our own creative team and with our own folks. And your true loyal members will start noticing that, and it's not a good thing to have. If they want to support you, they'll support your vision and your creativity till the end. If not, as you said before, it can just be for them that you're a marketing tool. And that's it.
Since we're talking about the control or lack of control the brands can exert over a community's social media, can we talk about specific types of content that you think have brought you the most community members?
Well, reels are as I said before, like reels are the main driver. I know, TikTok is very successful, and I've seen a lot of communities using it. And I think the growth on TikTok can actually be, exponentially bigger than on Instagram. I'm just, I'm not the biggest user of the platform, and I do like the aesthetic of Instagram more than TikTok. But I do think, I've seen very successful stories happening overnight more from TikToks than from Instagram Reels. So I would, encourage people to explore that avenue if, they feel comfortable with the apps. And besides Reels, I feel like the most kind of like successful content that you can post is the one actually involving people. I see, a lot of brands just focusing on designing cool posters with like sick aesthetics, like sleek, sexy, but it's just like writing numbers, and locations. And the most likes and shares and saves that we have are from those posts which, involve our running community, our people, like just the day-to-day runner. Because that's the more relatable one. That's what makes you feel engaged, because you're like, okay, well, that person is going through the same shit as I am today, rather than it can't all just be sexy and sleek and nice. I think that's the reality of it.
And also it makes people who are part of the community feel like, okay, I'm represent, like they are posting me, I'm gonna show my friends that I'm in a reel. I'm gonna repost that to my page, and people are seeing it on people's pages, the pages.
You know what? It's funny because we were chatting, and even from the early days, one of the things that people wait the most after a race event is when we share like all the stories of people who come to the event, because that's when you can find your crush that you've maybe like looked at, but you didn't talk to them at the event. So you're like, okay, so that's the
Now we're talking.
So exactly, 100%, 100%, and we love
their,
that. So that's
their handles
exactly.
and
There's a lot of research that happens with everyone who comes to a run club. Just I feel like in the 30 minutes post event, when you're like, okay, now we're going to scroll and search, for those. I don't know. It could be one profile, it could be more, depending on your vibe. Yeah, 100%.
And you said you don't charge people for participation.
Yeah.
Is there any ways you monetize the events? Do you sell merch? Do you sell presets for aesthetic content?
Yeah. Well, it's like the whole run club monetization is still like fairly a new avenue, and I feel like there's no defined answer to how you can monetize. Yes, I feel like the easiest way that people make money out of it is like selling merch. um, One of the cool things that working with Nike has allowed us to do, they said, we want to reward your loyal and your like your community members by providing them with merch um, at no cost. So we have like this super famous like spicy runner tees, which are in collab with Nike, and the only way to get them, people can't buy them. People have to come to the run club and just like show up. We do have our loyal giveaways and all that stuff, but it needs a certain level of engagement. That's the price, you got to pay for it. But again, this is just one vision. I'm sure at some point maybe we'll create some nice merch to sell. It's just like something that we didn't want to engage with at first. And there can be successful collaborations with brands, from a financial perspective, I guess. But a lot of brands, will first ask you to do sample testings, will ask you to kind of like pilot for them to get some types of metrics before they actually, provide you with any type of financial compensation. And I do feel like you should take that opportunity and just explore as many avenues as possible. And maybe that's a great way to approach any brands that you collaborate with. Just say, hey, let's do this event together. Let's see how it works out. We'll provide you with, some metrics and some content of what we've done, and then we can sit down and discuss. Um, and yeah, that's so far, what we're working for. I guess my overdraft is a very strong reflection of how well monetization works in the run clubs. But yeah.
Um, Quick break again to remind that just like Race Club, we are gonna tag you in our stories and repost you if you are gonna repost us, repost our live stream. So do with that what you will. And a question from the chat to follow up on
Right.
your previous question and
Oof.
my previous question. How do you find money, or do you compensate in any way the team members that are helping you with organization?
Well, that's where like the collabs with the brands, come into play. I guess, from a product, we get geared up, we get, access to events, and we can support, the journeys of our community leaders, to an extent, of course. So that comes into play. But I do have to say, like, and that's why I'm so grateful for the team that I have, because now, yes, Raise is becoming, more successful. But in the first couple of months, it was just like that passion and just like their own willingness to come every morning, be there and just share the energy and the vibe. And that's the group of people that you want alongside you in any project. It's not the ones that are expecting from day one stuff. It's the ones who believe in your project. And I'm trying my best, to get the most for them. But I also know that they are never asking, they are just, happy to be part of the journey, which is a very rare and nice thing to have.
Volunteering for community nonprofit project. 3 words. Four.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's also,
I can't count.
the success of a community project, as them being community leaders, also helps them build their own personal brand, you know, and that can also like be very important when like brands are looking for just individuals, for their campaigns, for like their social projects and stuff. And when they do need those people and that type of support, they're like, okay, well, Raises, is a very big community. We have this group of people that are managing it every week. Let's search through there, and I guess that's also one of the things that there's a lot of running campaigns, and we were chatting with a lot of brands as well, where like the content is being made by fake runners,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, just because they have a big community follower and they just like look cool. But I think that's what brands have realized recently, and that came from like the run clubs themselves, is that people relate more to the ads or like to the marketing campaigns where you feature OG, like true to the core runners or whatever sport you're doing.
Those
That
people
has to be
know.
running. Exactly.
So I feel like it's similar to the like to music stuff in the
Hmm.
recent years. Places like I don't know Grammy or whatever awards have been sworn with, influencers and people in the comments always like bring out more fans, bring out more struggling musicians, bring out more people from the music community.
Definitely. And
Or
even
like
in
yeah,
even in sport brands, like if you look at their campaigns, it used to be a period of time where like they will only feature like superstars, which is cool, because we all like to
looking
follow
at
influencers.
Serena.
Yeah. But now like it's more often that you see just like your day-to-day people featured in those campaigns, like going to the office after a marathon, how much your legs hurt, waking up at 6 a.m., having 2 kids and a job and still finding time to run. And is that kind of like grittiness that is speaking more to the customer
To the
base now?
viewer.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say community, not customer base, but sure. Okay, let's move on to something like a rapid fire
All right.
question round. Who creates the best videos about running?
Any runner who picks up the phone and fills their journey.
That's so cheesy, but I'll take it.
Come on. Some of the most successful reels, if you look on like on Instagram, are from like just like random folks. I was doing some media engagement and analysis, and just like random people with like 3,000 followers have more views on their reels than big brands with 6 million or 10 million followers on their
Absolutely.
base. So
Makes sense, honestly. What's tougher or harder, getting people to show up to event or organizing it?
organizing it.
Date an app or run clubs?
Oh,
For you
run clubs.
specifically.
Run clubs in capitals.
Who are more loyal community members, men or women?
Runners.
Oh my god, you had it
Come
prepped.
on.
It's almost as if we sent you a list of questions.
Exactly,
Okay.
right?
Crazy. I guess that's all I have for you now. If we don't have some crazy amazing um, finishing comments, we could maybe start wrapping this up. Maybe my colleagues have some comments for me, but if you want to say something to Prequel viewers right now, also to Ray's viewers because they are watching for sure. I'm seeing a lot of comments saying Ray's for the win and stuff like that.
No, I mean, just I guess just like a general comment or observation is that, as I said, don't focus so much on, having staged content, but do make sure that the way you deliver it is in a nice way. And I feel like that's where like, apps like Prequel come into place as well. You start posting and it will happen, you will get like traction and engagement and everything. And once you get to that point, don't just settle, for the same thing that you've been doing for a long time just because it was successful. Like try and find, ways and apps and options for you to kind of like, diversify and create even better things with your own vision, of course. But don't let that learning process creatively, stop the moment you hit, 1 million views or 2 million views. Yeah.
Or 100,000 views.
Or 100, or even, like 1,000. Any view or any type of engagement, it's just means that you're doing the right thing.
I feel like one day we can do like a supercut of all of our guests on these Prequel live streams saying never give up, don't be consistent.
Pretty much.
Yeah. 10 minutes, stuff like that.
Yeah, motivation stuff.
One last question from the chat actually.
Okay.
Did you ever pay for ads on the social media for promoting posts and reels?
Yeah. I feel like, but I feel like ads work when you already have like an established community, or like a follower base, because you just get more power in the way you can deliver a campaign. But in into like the whole ads on Instagram, there's a lot of metrics that you have to look at before you start an ad, you know. And I feel like now I actually got an email 2 days ago. They started doing like A/B testing on Instagram as well, which can predict the performance of your ads even before you start spending on them, which is something that Google used to do with their Google ads on websites. So that's a very good tool. But I wouldn't say just like throw money at ads just thinking that you're gonna get more followers and likes, because it doesn't happen like that, you know. The algorithm has to first pick up your reel and generate a certain amount of, you know, like viewers. I would say 50K, 100K, and once you got that, it can have potential to become an ad. Um, so yeah,
A successful one.
a successful
Yeah.
one, exactly. Yeah. So you have to keep track and also use the A/B tool, testing tool, you know, to
Yeah.
predict the outcomes of those campaigns. I think that's quite useful.
Well, thank you so much. Great insight, like a doorknob moment, as psychologists say. Thank you so much for joining us. We absolutely loved having this conversation. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Wishing you continued success on the journey of running a run club like this. To our viewers, don't forget to check out our past live streams on our YouTube channel at Prequelapp. Make sure to follow us on social media. Stay updated, and don't lose track of our future events like this. And of course, give a follow to Rizz Club.
Can I say
And,
one last thing just
yeah,
before
yeah,
we wrap
sure,
up?
of course,
I
of
would
course.
say, if anyone who's watching there, if you ever, you know, were thinking, I want to start posting, you know, but you just never did. If there's one thing that I highly encourage you to do after, you know, this conversation, is like just post it. You know, I'm sure you have a lot of like saved, you know, reels or videos or stuff in your drafts. Just post one and start, and you never know where you're gonna end up. You know.
I thought you were gonna say, if you're watching this, reach out in DMs, and I'm gonna give you a Nike T-shirt.
Yeah, well,
or
that's
denominator.
already being
but
done.
sure.
That's already being done, you know. So I'm not trying to add even more
Well, yeah,
mess to my DMs. Yeah.
Pasting yourself very graciously. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Vlad. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to everybody, and thank you for watching, and staying tuned. Goodbye, everyone.
Ciao.